Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, and I'm joining you from no camera in Lima, Peru. Um, basically, the reason I'm not with a camera, I usually don't really allow this, but I I'm not. I'm a bit knackered, and my eyes are all teary, so I don't think it was really a great idea to show me on camera. So I'm gonna make an exception just this time. So yeah, I'm joined as always with Peter Galindo in Toronto. He's our only guest today. Viz had to leave last minute, do some work. So Viz, if you're watching, a bit of a shout out to you. All right, Peter.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Hopefully, we can fill the void of Christopher and others. But I feel like this will be a jam-packed show either way, so it should be fine.
Two-man shows work well. Just look at a special pod yesterday. Which, speaking of, if you haven't checked it out, we did our first special pod, which is we're trialing the idea at the moment, and so far it's been a success. So let's keep this up. And if you haven't checked it out, it's on YouTube, it's on SoundCloud, it's on iTunes. Check it out. We talked about the Segunda División. We were going to talk about the Copa Peru as well, but we ran out of time, so we're going to do the Copa Peru next week with Christopher again. So let's get on with the show. So first we're going to talk about Clausura. Now, I guess we can start off with Sport Boys, who their manager, Wilmer Valencia, has resigned, and Manuel Fernandez has taken over. Now, I know very little about this Manuel Fernandez, and I didn't even bother looking him up on Google because I felt like if I typed in Manuel Fernandez, some other person named Manuel Fernandez will come up, some LinkedIn accounts, Facebook profiles. So I just felt like to trust what people said on Twitter. Apparently, he worked in defense of Justicia as manager. Apparently, he was a Sampaoli recommendation, but I know nothing about him. Peter, what do you know about this guy?
Well, I do know that he was also at Racing for a time, and Lautaro Martinez actually referred to Fernandez as the best coach I've had. Now, this was also before Coudet and before, I believe, the start of the Libertadores this year. So I'm sure maybe his opinion may have changed. But either way, I mean, considering that Martinez is considered one of the crown jewels of Argentina these days, for him to say that, I think that's a pretty nice recommendation for Fernandez to get. Plus, he was also, by all accounts, based on what you read and everything, he did a decent job at Defensa y Justicia. So I feel like based on that and the fact that Sampaoli recommended him, it is a pretty big get for Sport Boys, especially considering where they are, 6 points above the relegation zone. And offensively, they are not a great side. They are Tejada dependent, and they are double Tejada dependent because both Tejadas are very crucial to that team. But overall, I think that look, at the end of the day, the hire itself, I think, is not, you can't really say it's a risk because they almost have to take a risk at this point, considering where they are on the table. I don't think they'll get relegated. But I think it's more so damage control for the rest of this year. Going to next year, hopefully the board gets everything together and actually builds a proper side, because this one was clearly not good enough.
No, not at all. And the whole appointment with Wilmer Valencia was confusing to me because I've never rated him as a manager. I thought he was terrible at Juan Aurich last year, where they were getting battered pretty much every game.
Yep.
His defense was not organized, and I thought offensively they were too predictable. Here, the defense was a little better than most Wilmer Valencia sides. Like, I remember when we managed Verga Silaso in 2016. It was the same story. The defense was just all over the place. So it was a little better on those two sides. But offensively, they're just predictable as out. So they, I hope I pronounced that right, by the way. Sorry, Geordies. They were predictable as anything in American terms. But I didn't get that appointment from the start. I really wanted Jorge Espejo to take over because he's a young manager that I quite like. I liked his Comerciantes Unidos side last year, and I thought he could do a good job at Sport Boys. I guess neither of the parties really wanted it because Jorge Espejo doesn't want to burn himself out. He's not really doing anything at the moment, and the Sport Boys wanted a higher profile. I guess they realized that hiring Wilmer Valencia was a mistake because, I mean, they clearly stagnated under him. Maybe I wouldn't say they regressed, but they stagnated for sure. So that's one thing that disappointed me about Sport Boys this year. It wasn't just the team; it was just some of the overall decisions have been really poor. And Manuel Fernandez, hopefully he'll do better. I want Sport Boys to stay up because they're a traditional side, and it'll be a shame to see them go down so soon after they stayed up, or after they got promoted, after so long we waited for. So Peter, what else do you have to add here?
Well, on that point, in terms of like who they hired and who they could have hired, so I was looking a little bit earlier because obviously with Cordova coming in at La U, we now have Fernandez coming in at Sport Boys. There are obviously many, predominantly Argentinian and Uruguayan managers in Peru. There are now, I think by my count, only like 5 Peruvian coaches in the top flight. So there was also, I believe it was a tweet from friend of the show, Simon Edwards, who was talking about how fewer and fewer Colombian managers are getting not only opportunities with the national team, but also opportunities in the domestic league with the bigger clubs. Do you think that there's a bit of a problem when it comes to giving Peruvian coaches a chance, not just with the big teams in Peru, but just in general? Because it's not, I mean, I know Sport Boys is a big club, but, you know, given where they are right now, you know, does that say more about maybe the quality of Peruvian coaching, or just the fact that teams aren't willing to give them those chances and would rather hire a foreign manager?
Well, there's no one coming through. That's the problem. Because I mean, you think about it. The only young Peruvian manager that I quite rate is Jorge Espejo. The rest is like there's no one else. I can't think of any names on top of my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
The three Peruvian managers are Mosquera, Reynoso, and Navarro. The rest aren't even worth it because they just aren't very good. Like I don't know maybe the coaching courses in this country just aren't that good or something. I'm not too sure, but they just aren't. They like Wilmer Valencia is supposed to be one of the best Peruvian managers, and he's not even close to being a good manager. So
no,
he's There's clearly not enough talent managerial wise. I mean, you could always get someone from the Copa Peru, or there's actually I kind of take that back. There's Luis Flores, who is doing quite well at Binacional. There's one example.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't think he's going to want to leave yet. I mean, maybe next year he could do it. Sport Boys aren't much of a financial upgrade from Binacional, if at all. Yeah. So it is. Other than that, you can look at the Segunda División Copa Peru, but those are always risks. It's kind of like getting a manager from the Championship and managing the Premier League. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It takes time, and knowing how patient Peruvians are, it probably won't work out. So I think that's one positive of the Copa Peru teams getting automatic promotion to Primera División. I mean, some people complain about it, but I do think there are positives, just like that that thing I mentioned right there, and they just aren't very good managers. And there's no one going to be given the chance to Primera División. Everyone wants a foreign manager, so we might as well just let them check the Segunda or Copa Peru to see if there's anyone decent. I think that's the best option we have right now.
Yeah, and then until then, I think you just also have to improve the quality of the coaching courses, maybe make it more affordable, and just encourage more people who maybe have, you know, an eye or two on coaching in the future or are thinking about it to just say like, hey, listen, you know, here's the avenue you can go through. Here is the relatively low cost, because I'm sure that is a big deterrent for many people, especially in Peru. Whereas I don't think that would be much of a problem, say, in Argentina. I know that obviously South America in general is not exactly prosperous, but I mean, let's be honest, you're probably going to do fine when it comes to Argentina in terms of finding coaches, because I think it's more accessible, it's more cost efficient. Whereas in Peru, I don't think there's that same opportunity. But yeah, I mean, only seeing 5 Peruvian coaches out of 16 teams, you understand it if you follow the league for a while, but then when you kind of sit back and think about it, you're kind of wondering like, wow, this is not too encouraging. But I guess people won't mind as long as their team wins.
Oh, yeah, of course. I guess we can move on to the next little bit. We can talk about some of the games for the Clausura. I guess we can talk about the ones we analyzed, because we put 2 tactical analysis. I watched both games. I don't know, Peter, how much you saw the Huancayo game, but I know we both saw the La U and Melgar game. So I guess we can start with that one. We can start with the one we both know well about. Rather than the one where I know well about, and you follow it, I think. I know you saw the highlights for it, but
I did.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the one we both saw firstly. So La U were not in control of this game at all, but it was nearly a deja vu for Nicolas Cordova, because Nicolas Cordova had a similar situation with Santiago Wanderers. They got dominated and they shot once at net and they won, Santiago Wanderers, and that almost happened here as well. But a red card for Archimedes Figueira saw them really throw the game away. And Cordova, in my opinion, did also throw the game, because he should not have put Vargas on after Figueira got sent up. That was not the solution.
Yeah, definitely not. And I just in general, what Figueira did, I mean, come on, man. But it also was classic Archimedes Figueira, or, am I right? Like,
yeah.
How many times has he done this in the past? Just boneheaded mistakes, really. And even though Lau didn't necessarily look all that great, I think the altitude had a lot to play with it. Obviously, the stadium was decently packed. The atmosphere actually sounded decent based on the Gol Peru broadcast.
About time.
I was actually surprised to see it that full.
Yeah, it had a lot of people.
Yeah, so that was encouraging to see. But, I think given the circumstances, you can maybe understand why he deviated away from what he has normally done, which is playing that possession-oriented 4-3-3. It was actually Melgar who controlled a lot of moments in this game. I guess the positives for Lau are their young wingers looked pretty good whenever they were in the final third in Ciucho and Nunez. Germán Denis came on and I think made a pretty decent impact. And I think Lavandera did as well, even though he only played about 10 minutes, while they were down to 10 men. I was encouraged by some signs, but Melgar, it must be said, was tremendous, especially Tulio Echemaite on his debut. And as I wrote about it too, it was almost like a masterclass in off-the-ball movement from him. His off-the-ball movement was causing Lau's defense so many problems. Him and Christopher Gonzalez, no surprise given that they were former teammates at Sport Rosario as well. They combined very nicely. Patricio Arce was getting involved, which, really over the last month or two, he's been amazing. So I think those are two very astute signings, which I'm sure we'll get onto later. And I think Melgar is a team. I know it's only one game, Brian, but based on that match against an admittedly still, adaptable Lau side, the signs were there and they did need a bit of an attacking boost. And this was without Joel Sanchez as well. So they definitely have the pieces to be able to make a decent push in the Clausura.
No, agreed. I think Melgar have reinforced really well, and Gino Guerrero hasn't even played here, so it's a good start for them. And Echemaite surprised me. I didn't rate him before, but after seeing that match, I do appreciate him a little more now. I know it's just one game, but I thought as Rosario he had an inconsistent goal scoring record. He would score two or three goals every 4 matches. And his goal record was good, but that's because he had the odd good match where he scored 2 goals or a hat trick, and then he wouldn't score again for another 3 or 4 matches. But I do appreciate him a lot more, and I was a bit skeptical of this Melgar side, because I was thinking they're too much like Sport Rosario. But then you got to think about it. Sport Rosario were first a while back until those players left, so they were not a bad team at all. It's And now they have the extra quality. Sport Rosario had some had the good players, but they also had some weak links. And you look at this Melgar side, and they don't have that much of it. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of a weak link. Maybe the fullbacks can be seen as them. That's the biggest weak link I see. And I think Melgar were clear deserved winners of this game. They took advantage of the red card, and they were able to turn it around. It was so close to Córdoba deja vu, but they got the job done, and I think Melgar is a strong contender for this Clausura.
Very much so, yeah. Which is good to see, I guess, because this was a side that I think maybe before the season we might have tipped to actual, and I guess for a while in the Apertura as well, they were making a push, but then eventually Cristal's quality just shined through. But I think we were expecting them in really any of these 3 phases to make a serious push for one of those titles. And I think in the Clausura, this might be it. I guess it maybe took them a little while to overcome some notable departures, maybe bring in certain players that filled areas of need. And it seems like they got that now, which is good to see. And again, it is only one game. It did happen against Lau, a team that is in transition in a lot of ways. They do have, I believe, Brian, Sport Huancayo in a couple of weeks. Maybe even a week from now. I think it's the 16th or 15th of September. and that's at home. So that could be a really another good litmus test in terms of where this team is. And then I believe actually Echemaite and Gonzalez will face their former team in Sport Rosario a couple weeks after that. So a couple of pretty tricky ties there to close out the month of September.
That'll be a cool tie. But and speaking of Huancayo, I guess we can go to the next game. So to sum it up, this game was basically terrible keeping. Like Pinto and Ortiz were both terrible in the night. Like you could shoot it. You could put. I was trying to make a joke. I'm sorry, but they were. Casa, I think, it should come in to this team now. I don't highly rate Casa, as you all know, but I do think he's better than Ortiz. I do think he's an upgrade. Unlike a Municipal, where for me he wasn't an upgrade on Rivadeneira. I do think he is an upgrade on Ortiz. And he do well over his team. He'll make his mistakes here and there, but in Peru he can get away with it. So I think he'll be fine personally. And I think this is a good signing for him, a good signing for Garcilaso, a good signing for all parties involved because he needs game time. And Garcilaso are not – well, they are a small club, but by no means they're a bad team. They're one of the stronger teams in Peru in recent years. And I think that'll be good. As for Joel Pinto, I was surprised at how poor he was because he looks so insecure. Like every time Garcilaso will make a shot at net, he will make some sort of mistake and he will get away with it. But he was just not saving anything on the night. He's very good. He's a very good keeper in my opinion. I don't get what happened to him. Like just one of those days, I guess. Bad day at the office. So as for the game, Huancayo have not lost this ground to Garcilaso in 5 years. They lost last year, but it was in Sequani. It wasn't in the Garcilaso La Vega. So they continue that run. They're very good against Garcilaso. Even in general, they haven't lost to Garcilaso very much so since 2013. So it's they've done well against them. I thought I tactically analyzed this game. As well. And there's a few things I enjoyed. First of all, I praised Tavares Silva last week, but I'm going back to critiquing him because after seeing how bad his defense was in this game, it seems like he hasn't learned anything. Like his defense is still it's improved. I'll give him that, but it's still kind of a mess. I mean, if you remember that part where I wrote about Arismendi, how he was supposed to either go Marco Rales or go stop Valverde, and he was just sitting there. Not even offering an extra body in the box because like there was no point of him even being there. He had no idea what he was doing, so that didn't make sense to me. And the defense in general didn't look that good. I think the reason there wasn't much danger is because Huancayo played a very aerial game, as they sometimes do. Another thing I need to mention is Valverde played as a 10, and I didn't really like it, to be honest. I think he's better as a box-to-box midfielder where he makes everything click.
Yeah, agreed.
I think he's better there. I think as a 10, he didn't really work out well. And one player who's been surprising me as of late is Miguel Auca, who's a Cusqueño local. And he didn't have the best game, but he did show some flashes of potential as a ball-winning midfielder. So he was an interesting player to watch. What do you think, Peter?
That was actually something I was going to ask you because earlier on in the season, especially in the Copa Libertadores, even in that win against Santos where they really did dominate that match in Cusco, one of the more notable weaknesses of that team was that midfield duo. And even against Santos, they were getting overrun on the counterattack. They were getting overrun even when they were in possession. There would be sloppy giveaways. And I think that Auca, based on the numbers that I've seen, based on the little clips I've watched from that game, as much as I have been able to, I think positionally, he offered more stability than previous options, I guess, that Garcilaso had. And that's why, I mean, based on the fact that he has started and he is playing, it really surprised me that, and I guess this might have had to do with the coaching change as well, but it really did surprise me that Rudy Palomino didn't get much more of a chance, especially considering the gaping hole in that midfield that they desperately needed. And I know that Palomino, maybe it might have been a bit of a step up, but, really could he have done much worse, especially if you give him a run of games. So on one hand, it's nice to see a young player doing well in that role, or at least decently well in that role and filling a need for now. But you also kind of wonder maybe why the previous option who was there around a similar age didn't get the same opportunity.
Yeah, no, I do like Alca. I think he has flashes of potential. I don't think he'll be a great player, but I think for the Peruvian league, become decent. He become either a very good midfielder or another Edwin Retamoso, which is never a bad thing. Edwin Retamoso wasn't a terrible player. He was quite good. Let's be fair. For this league, anyways, he was quite good. So I do think Alca could definitely fill in a good role there. And for now, he's a solution. Depends on what they do later, but for now, he's the solution they need. He's a lot better than Jordana Mendoza, who I don't rate at all, as you know in previous pods. Yes. Probably the worst midfielder I've ever seen. So I don't know what he's doing in this division. Don't really rate him. I don't think he can do one Segunda División either. So I don't think he's I don't rate him at all. He's kind of like Luis Garro in a way. That Jordana Mendoza and Luis Garro will not do well in the Primera nor the Segunda. So,
oh man.
It's kind of a strange case here, but yeah, no, it was a fun game. Ramua really impressed me in this game in particular. I've been a bit of a critic of Ramua as of late, but he's a very interesting role. He plays as a 10 that basically functions as a deep line playmaker. I mean, he sits a bit deeper and then just plays out those long balls that really work well on the altitude as well. So while I do think he's still a bit of an altitude player, he has been playing out of his skin lately, and you've got to give him credit for that, no doubt. So
yeah.
I just wish he performed like that in the Libertadores, to be honest. Which he's definitely not. He's not like Holberg, which is a bad player in the Libertadores because he has proved himself in the past. But I think this year was the exception.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on that train with you. Ramua, to me, though, I mean, you could definitely see the quality, at least when he was at home. And in the Copa Libertadores, in a couple of games, he actually did very well. But then there would be other moments when he would get the ball, and then instead of looking to Vidales on the wing or Landauri on the wing, or maybe looking for when he was playing at left back, the overlapping run from Santillan, he would just shoot it from distance when really there was no need to. So a really just a cacophony of errors, really, and strange decisions from him at very weird times. But it is good to see that he is at least back to what he is doing best, and that is just spraying the ball across the pitch. And you wrote about him, too, in that tactical analysis. He had, 7 key passes? So Seven. So, I mean, that's what he does best, right? It's that mixture of distribution and then just the general threat he has when going forward, especially on the counterattack.
It's the whole Ramua thing shooting from far. It really reminds you of Lobaton a few years ago when he scored that Olympic goal against Cienciano, and then in the Libertadores, he would just keep trying to score Olympic goals from corners. Yeah. It was the most frustrating thing ever. Like, it was the most frustrating thing. Kind of reminds you of that. Like, he scores one long shot and then he keeps trying it. Like, he lets him get to his head.
Got to admire it in a way, though.
I mean, it works sometimes, but you can't always rely on it. Like,
no, it's true.
You got to try other things.
Yeah.
So, but this is not a past conversation about the Libertadores. Let's go on to the last few minutes of the Clausura talk. Let's talk about some of the other matches. I'll let you choose the first match, Peter. Which one do you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, partially just because I guess we're kind of circling back to where we started, but the Cristal Sport Boys game was intriguing to me just because Flavio Gomez scoring, I think, is massive for his confidence, especially given the rise of Marcos Lopez over these last couple of months. There is a little bit of competition there. There are obviously a lot of young players, young attacking players at Cristal who can, I think, pip each other depending on their form. So for him to score, especially in a game where just right away they were full throttle, it was good to see, certainly. And just in general, seeing Cristal starting off with a dominant win and getting that 4-goal margin of victory, some will wonder, okay, have they maybe emptied the tank based on their efforts in the Torneo de Verano, based on what they did in the Apertura? Is there a bit of a chance for a team to capitalize on fatigue? At least based on that first game, it doesn't look like they're going to be slowing down anytime soon. Yes, the opposition maybe wasn't the most lethal threat in attack, but certainly for Cristal fans, that is a positive to see from them, seeing their team start off the new phase with a big win.
Yeah, and Herrera is in a huge course. He's at 27 goals now. Still has a few ways to go. Only 5 goals behind the all-time top scorer of Cristal in a single season, which is Miguel Jimenez or Jimenez. I've always struggled with that last name, but he has 30. He had 32 goals in Chino Jimenez, and Herrera's only 5 goals from that. And I definitely think he'll do it. Like, there's no doubt now, unless he gets like end of season injury, he's definitely gonna do it, which is really, really good for him. He's one of the best forwards Cristal have had in a long time. So that's good to see, and hopefully he can stay for the Libertadores next year. Hopefully he doesn't leave. Given his age, I don't think he will. I think he will stay here now, which is it's great. And I do think most clubs, or the 2 clubs he just failed at, Lobos and Emelec. I do think Emelec was a bit tough for him. I mean, there was no excuse for him. He had Angel Mena, he had Miller Bolaños. I mean, he really should have done better there. But Lobos, I think he did struggle a little bit because of the lack of company, and he also didn't play very much. So
that is true.
He also didn't play very many games. So the last game I want to talk about, this is just one I saw. I was multitasking to watch this one, so excuse me if I don't have the best knowledge of this next game. But Alianza Lima versus Sport Rosario, which, let me put it this way, Alianza Lima dodged another bullet because they played absolutely terrible. This is probably one of the worst games of the season they've played. Sport Rosario pretty much dominated the encounter, and Alianza found one corner, and they managed to win it. And it's frustrating to see because I really want Bengochea to go, as you all know. But they just keep on finding ways to win, and it's annoying because they don't even play well. I mean, one thing is playing ugly and playing well. The other thing is just not playing well at all, and that's Alianza right there because they have so many weaknesses. They always give the ball away in midfield. They don't defend well. I mean, they literally just keep winning because the Peruvian league is so forgivable, or there's so much forgiveness in the Peruvian league, and that's one of the big issues. They really shouldn't be winning as much as they are.
No, and really both teams did not play all that well, really. But then again, Sport Rosario actually outshot Alianza Lima in this game. The possession was about even. But just watching these teams trying to string passes together was probably one of the most painful things I've watched on a football pitch in quite some time. Player would get possession and then for whatever reason would just rush a pass, whoever it happened to be. And I'm thinking, you have the time and space to control it, to settle it down, maybe string a few passes together, put some pressure on the opposing defense, but that never happened. It was not a good match at all, and really that's been the case for Alianza. I guess really, if you want to go back into the Apertura as well, I guess their last 3 or 4 games, they really didn't look all that impressive. And even though they didn't look impressive to start the Clausura, they got the win, which I guess you kind of got to admire because, that whole cliche, champions know how to win even when they're not on their best day. But you have to wonder how many more games can they have like this until it catches up to them, especially because with Cristal doing well, with Melgar reinforcing, as we spoke about, Huancayo's obviously going to be a threat. Garcilaso as well. You would imagine there's going to be much tougher competition in the Clausura, especially with so many teams reinforcing. You have to wonder if that eventually catches up to them to the point where they can't just luck into finishing second or maybe keep somewhat of a close pace with Cristal or whoever happens to lead.
Yeah, no, I do think Atlanta will struggle in this Clausura because they've not reinforced well enough, and they have, but they've the only player they've reinforced is Afonso. And Adrian said as well, they got Villamarin, but he's playing out of position, so he's not going to be effective. I've rambled on about it too much, and I'm going to keep rambling about it on until he plays in right back, which is his position. Yep. So it's they've only signed 2 players really. 3 again, but one's playing out of position, so he doesn't count. And Alianza are going to struggle in this Clausura. I'm absolutely sure of it. I think they'll finish below 5th. Personally, I just think the other teams have gone too strong for them at this point, and they're going to be less forgivable, especially with Lau getting a player like Denis. Denis is not going to forgive Alianza in those situations. The problem is, can he get those situations? We'll see if Lavandera can provide enough. So, I guess that's all for the Clausura. Before we continue, I do want to give a shout out for Ancash for Christopher. They drew in the last minute. They conceded a last-minute equalizer. So Christopher's obviously very happy about that. Sarcasm. I had to give a shout-out to kind of wind them up. But they scored 2 goals for Ancash, and they conceded a last-minute equalizer. I talked to Viz, and he was really pissed about it. So it was absolute scenes. And Rosa Spampa brought more people than Sport Rosado ever could. So that was a nice sight to see. So I guess we can go to the national team talk. Tomorrow we play against the Netherlands, and I had mixed thoughts on this game. I'll let Peter talk first. What do you think on this game? What do you think of the lineup that's being predicted, and what is your predictions?
Well, it looks like we were probably right all along when we were asked before the squad was announced in terms of what will be Gareca's approach for these games, at least for the Netherlands game. He's going to go for the win with basically his best available squad. That is essentially all the starters from the World Cup, except for, Santa Maria, Aquino. I'm talking about the players who started in the first game against Denmark. But in general, this is really basically like a first-choice team. I mean, Aquino and Tapia, that's basically a like-for-like replacement, both in terms of position and quality. Santa Maria at this point is an upgrade over Rodriguez because Rodriguez can't stay fit. So really, in general, you would imagine they're going to do decently well because all those players know the system. They're starting with Jefferson Farfan up front because it looks like they want to keep that same system in place, which on one hand I kind of understand, but it's also disappointing because all the other South American nations are trying something new, whereas Peru's trying to, I think, stick to a philosophy that in a year or two they probably won't even be able to use and can't use at least for the next few months because Paolo's suspended. So I think that the chances of them doing well in the game are decently high considering the familiarity between the players. The Netherlands are going to line up, it looks like, in their usual 3-4-1-2. This is going to be Wesley Sneijder's send-off match. It's going to be in Amsterdam, so it's going to be an emotional night. You would imagine it's going to be a decently good game because I'm sure the Dutch are going to want to win at home in Sneijder's last match. But this is going to be a challenge, though. I really do, because the Dutch have really been able to, at least under Ronald Koeman, from what I've seen, they now have a clear system in place. They're a little less predictable. They move the ball a lot more fluidly. I think this is a team that could give Peru a lot of problems, but that's great because you want to see them being tested against marquee European competition, which I think will serve these players well in the future.
The thing I hope is I just hope they don't stagnate because I want to see Calcaterra. I want to see Madrid play at some point. I mean, I think there's too much of an emphasis on trying to win this game. I mean, it's always an honor to beat the Netherlands, but we really got to gel some of these players in. And I do think there had to be at least one different player on the line. I would have liked to see Calcaterra. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would have possibly. I mean, obviously he's hurt now, at least, it's a very minor injury, but Rui Diaz, I would have liked to see him start up front. It looked like, because Luis Advincula's fitness wasn't apparently up to standard, this was yesterday or a couple days ago, it looked like Johan Madrid was actually going to be playing at right back. That would have been cool to see, I think. But Gareca did also say that eventually those players are going to get a chance to play significant minutes, be it off the bench or as a starter. I would imagine for the Germany game, he'll rotate a little bit because I'm sure Germany's also going to want to look at new players. They called up a few different guys as well they're going to want to look at. So, that to me has to be imperative because with the Copa America coming up in 2019, you have to start looking at certain players heading into that 2020, 2021, kind of area of the cycle. Who can we start blooding into the team and who can make a contribution around that time? Because we all know what these players can provide, Brian. Like, let's be honest. We know what Yotun's all about. We know what Ramos is all about, Gaese, et cetera, et cetera. But what about these new guys? Like, let's give them an opportunity to play a little bit, get familiar with the system, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You just rotate them out for a game or two and see what other players can do. I really think there's no harm in experimenting in friendlies at all, really.
That's one big problem, I think, with Gareca's done a great job, but I think one of his biggest problems is he puts too much of an emphasis on friendlies. He tries to win them too much. And I think it's important to really try to just experiment a little bit more than he is. I mean, he does play subs, but I do want to see some of these players start. And I mean, he's done it sometimes. He did with Santa Maria in the March friendlies, but he was kind of obligated to do it because of Rodriguez's injury. I would like to see him start the starters less in these matches. Maybe if you have 2 games, start the starters in one, and then the other game just experiment a little bit. So like you don't lose the main core. You don't ungel the main core, but at the same time you don't. At the same time, you try new players and you gel them in, because look how long it took Flores and Trauco to. Flores got from Flores started immediately, but Trauco, the likes of Trauco, the likes of maybe Tapia, Cuevas in some ways took them a while when they were in the Peruvian league because of the lower standard of the league. It took them a while to get used to the higher tempo, higher rhythm. And I think that's going to be the case for players like Madrid, maybe even Cacaterra, players like them who are in the Peruvian league and are not as used to this. Cacaterra might be used to it because he's played the Libertadores. Madrid, not really. He's only played 2 international matches his whole career, so it's a bit different for him. And I think it's something we got to be careful with. I think Rice and Duvara will have no problems, but the other players might.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, because this is what I was kind of preaching before the World Cup started, I understood why Gareca put such a strong emphasis on his best 11 playing every chance they could get. Essentially, if they were available, they're going to start, because going into those qualifiers, the World Cup, whatever the situation happened to be, you need to get everybody up to speed. You have such little time together to play. So you got to get them familiar together as quickly as possible. And usually in friendlies, that's the best way to do it. The thing is, there's no upcoming competition to worry about until next summer. And that is a competition, though, that Gareca is, you would imagine, going to try and win, especially because I think the field is, apart from Brazil, pretty wide open. So on one hand, I maybe get that, but you hope that after the Copa America is over next year, he starts to transition the team a little bit, which he did to his credit in 2016 with the Copa America Centenario. You would hope that same trend repeats itself, but you do kind of wish that in these friendlies, if you see these new players getting called up, fans want to see them. I'm sure the coaching staff would like to see those players do well also, because there is a lot of value to having them in the camp and training and, mingling with the other players and whatnot, but there's also a strong value in them actually playing in games, but that obviously goes without saying.
Yeah, I do see your point. You do make a good point. Like you said, there's no upcoming competition, so now there's like a no risk. It's like, I don't want to say it's now or never, but like it's no risk. It's no risk. And like I said, I'm really keen to see Calcaterra. I mean, some people are critical of him. I was critical of him last year, but this year I've taken a much bigger liking to him, and I would like to see him. I wanted to see him maybe instead of Cueva just for this game, to play Cueva next game, but that's obviously not going to happen now, or it doesn't look like it's going to happen anyways. So it is something that I'm keen on seeing, and like I said, I hope that they can do something, but I'm not like overly worried about winning this game. I think it's a good time to experiment and whatnot. Now, as for the Netherlands, the predictions, I personally think, and this goes to Germany too, I think we're going to lose both games. Personally, I'm going to be a bit pessimistic for this one. I mean, the Netherlands, I have to gel a completely new system because they've been awful the last 3 years. They're only going to get better, I think. But the past 3 not the past 3 years. I do think we are just because of how many players are not playing at their clubs, and some players that are with minor injuries. Like I'm not that confident personally. I think that is one thing. Like I think they're going to exploit Trauco's side. He's going to look out of it. Cueva's going to look out of it because he hasn't played consistent minutes in a very long time. Since before the World Cup, essentially. And Aquino's kind of I love Aquino. He's kind of up and down with his form as of late. He's doing well some games, other games he's not doing so well, and he's kind of up and down right now. And Farfan's not, I don't know how Farfan is doing. He's not scoring, but I don't know how he's doing in the whole play. I'm sure you can tell me later, Peter. But in Carrillo, I think his level's only going to get worse from here. So I think the only player, and Flores, of course. And Flores is not playing at all either. So, yeah, there's not many players playing at the moment. The only players who I trust are Yotun, Santa Maria. Even though Santa Maria isn't really playing and he's been out of fitness, I do kind of trust him. And Ramos. Advincula, we'll see how he does. He might have his minor injury problems, but I think he'll be fine. I just don't think we'll win this game. I think we're a little bit out of shape.
Yeah, me too. I think that's probably the big thing here. Yes, the European season only started like a month ago, but I mean, a lot of these players are going to be in superior form compared to the Peruvian players for the reasons you mentioned, especially players like, for example, Van Dijk, De Ligt, Van de Beek if he plays, De Jong if he plays. And there's a couple of different potential 11s that they could go with, but the vast majority of those potential starters are going to be in much superior form and just more fit than the Peruvian team. And given obviously the emotional side of it with Schneider's last game, you would imagine they're probably going to end up winning. I think it'll be a close game because I still think that even when Peruvian players aren't necessarily in the greatest of form, I mean, it's the classic South American thing. They just seem to transform as soon as they put on their country's jersey. So I think they'll give it a decent fight. The Germany game, though, I think is the one where they can maybe get something. I think maybe like a draw, because Germany typically in friendlies usually don't play at the highest intensity, and that usually leads to sloppier results in those friendlies, which up until the 2018 World Cup didn't really seem to matter. So that's probably the one game where I could see Peru getting a result. But as for the Netherlands game, I do agree with you. I think they lose this. I'll say, if I had to pick a score prediction, I'll say 2-1.
Yeah, I was going to say 2-1 as well. I think they will score, but I don't think they'll win it. Hopefully we can ruin Snyder's goodbye, just like we ruined Roca Santa Cruz's goodbye. So that'll be a nice sight. We'll become the new Uruguay. So the Germany game, on the other hand, I don't think we'll win that either, to be honest. I think we're going to lose that as well. Just for two reasons. One, it doesn't with these big sides, it doesn't matter how sloppy they are. They always find a way to just grind it out. I mean, I know Germany don't really grind out friendlies. I mean, England's beaten them in how many friendlies? Let's be fair. But Germany are just a much superior side. But the reason I think they'll win this is because I think they'll be hungry for results after that disastrous World Cup they've just had. So I think friendlies or not, I think they're going to be a bit hungrier than in most friendlies. And I think the sloppiness is going to not be present in this match. So I think it's going to be a very bad international day for Peru. But like I said, I don't mind it as long as you try out new players. If we're going to play the team, that I would like to see us get something, but I would much rather experiment.
Yeah, but also, because it looks like they're not going to experiment, at least for the Netherlands game, as long as they play well enough and they don't obviously get embarrassed, which really under Gareca has really not been the case, that's what I really think matters most. Because at the end of the day, these European tests are very important for the future of the team, as well as just building up the confidence, right? Because if you perform admirably against a Germany, a Holland, I mean, even against France, yes, France at the end of the day didn't have too many problems beating Peru, but to keep it close and to have a couple of decent chances against them, the eventual world champions no less, that can build confidence and it can boost your morale. So I think at the end of the day, most sane Peruvian fans, and I'm putting emphasis on the word sane, they will accept a defeat as long as the team plays well enough and there's a clear plan in place, which even if we don't agree with it, there is a clear plan in place.
All right. Now, before we end the pod, let's talk about one more thing. Something that happened today. Marathon released a new kit for Peru, and it's awful. I'm just going to put it that way. It's terrible. It doesn't surprise me personally. A lot of people like the work that Marathon did with Lau. I don't see why, because they just made Lau look like a school team, basically. They did terrible work with them. So it shouldn't come to a surprise that they're terribly here. They basically copied a format they used for Ecuador a few years ago. And they basically made like the right sleeve all red. And it's not just that. I don't like how big the sash is either. And of course, there's no sash in the backside either. So that's those are a few things that are like. Peter, what about you? What do you think about this?
No, I completely agree with you. Those are all my criticisms. And just in general, it doesn't look, I mean, I also haven't seen it in action, which I'm sure we will in these games. At least I think we will. Until I see it on the players, I'm going to think that it is also just a low quality shirt, just in terms of the material, the way it looks. Whereas when you had even the Umbro kits, those were nice quality kits. And they were simple, they were elegant. And that is why so many people love the Peruvian shirt, because it's iconic, it's noticeable, but it's simple in its design. And I get that Marathon wanted to put its staple on it, but at the end of the day, as the old cliche goes, Brian, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, what was going on was perfectly fine. If they had just taken that exact same shirt and transmitted that into this release, people wouldn't have a problem. And this was actually the one worry that everybody had about the Marathon deal, is that they're going to try and change it a little bit too much. And for now, that's the case. But I think at the end of the day, Brian, as long as the team wins in that shirt, I'm sure they will not care what the team wears.
Of course, I wouldn't care either. It just like it feels really weird looking at the back of the players and not seeing the red sash. That's gonna feel really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like Marathon at all. But apparently they offered the most money, so I'll be able to accept it. It was something like that. So
yeah,
it was a poor decision to accept them. But if the money is the most important for these federations, so
it is.
It's like you're not gonna turn it down.
No.
Despite people not liking it. But it's an awful kit. Let's just put it that way. Let's end the pod here. It's a bit of a shorter pod today. So my name is Brian Birdie, and I'm signing off. My Twitter is B_Birdie98. Peter, what is yours?
Mine is at GalindoPW. You can follow the show at Peru Waltz, and don't forget to subscribe to us on all platforms: SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and lots of good content on the website too. National team related, lower leagues related, Primera División related, everything. So check that out if you want a variety of topics, which we try to provide.
All right. So thank you for listening or watching. I'm most likely listening because you're really only watching Peter right now. But yeah, thank you for listening or watching, and we are signing off.